Have you ever noticed how someone who once laughed the loudest, spoke the most and filled every room with energy slowly becomes quiet? Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. It helps us bring you more meaningful content like this, and you might find something here that truly touches your life or someone you love. Now think about this. There was a time when they had stories for everything. They shared opinions freely. They laughed loudly, argued passionately, and spoke without hesitation. But now they sit silently. They listen more than they speak. Sometimes, they do not speak at all. Why does this happen? Is it just age? Or is there something deeper, something we often ignore? Let's understand this, not just with logic but with empathy. As people grow older, life begins to change in ways that are hard to explain but deeply felt. One of the biggest reasons elderly people become quiet is because they have simply seen too much. They have experienced joy, pain, success, failure, love, and loss. Over time, they realize that not everything needs a reaction. Not every situation needs words. Silence becomes a kind of wisdom. When you have lived long enough, you understand that arguing does not always solve things. Explaining yourself repeatedly becomes tiring. And trying to make others understand your feelings often feels pointless. So instead of speaking, they choose silence. There is a story of a man named Robert. In his younger years, he was known as the most talkative person in his family. At every gathering, he was the center of attention. He made jokes, told stories, and gave advice to everyone. But after he turned 70, something changed. At family dinners, he would sit quietly. He would smile, nod, but rarely speak. His children thought he was becoming distant. His grandchildren thought he was just tired. One day, his daughter asked him, "Why don't you talk like before?" Robert smiled gently and said, "Because now I listen. And I have realized people do not really want advice. They just want to be heard." That one sentence carried a lifetime of understanding. Another reason elderly people become quiet is loneliness. This is not always the kind of loneliness where someone is physically alone. Sometimes, they are surrounded by people yet feel completely unheard. Their world moves at a slower pace, while everything around them moves faster. Conversations become shorter. People are busy. Phones replace real interaction. And slowly, they feel like they do not belong in these fast conversations anymore. So they stop trying. They stop interrupting. They stop sharing. They start observing. And silence becomes their companion. At this point, if you are finding this meaningful, consider subscribing to the channel. It truly helps us continue creating content that matters. There is also emotional pain that comes with aging. Many elderly people carry memories that are too heavy to speak about. They have lost friends, partners, siblings, sometimes even children. These losses change a person deeply. When you lose people who truly understood you, it becomes harder to open up to others. Because no one else knows your story the same way. So instead of explaining everything again, they remain quiet. There is another story. A woman named Margaret used to call her best friend every single day for over 40 years. They shared everything. Every joy, every worry, every small detail of life. One day, her friend passed away. After that, Margaret stopped talking as much. Her family noticed the change. She was still there, but something was missing. When asked why she had become so quiet, she said, "The person who understood my words without explanation is gone. Now every conversation feels like work." This is something many people do not understand. Silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes, it is filled with memories, emotions, and thoughts that are too deep for words. Another reason is that elderly people often feel like their opinions are no longer valued. When they speak, they may feel ignored or dismissed. Younger generations sometimes see their ideas as outdated. Technology creates a gap. Language changes. Priorities change. After a while, they stop sharing their thoughts because they feel it does not matter anymore. Imagine speaking and feeling like no one is truly listening. Over time, you would stop speaking too. There is also a shift in priorities. When people are young, they want to prove themselves. They want to express, to argue, to be heard. But with age, these desires fade. Peace becomes more important than winning an argument. Calm becomes more valuable than constant conversation. They choose silence not because they have nothing to say but because they have learned what is worth saying. Health also plays a role. As people age, hearing problems, memory issues, and slower thinking can make conversations more difficult. They may not respond as quickly. They may struggle to keep up. Instead of feeling embarrassed or frustrated, they choose to stay quiet. It becomes easier. But there is something important to understand. Just because elderly people are quiet does not mean they have nothing to say. In fact, they often have the most meaningful thoughts. They are observing everything. They are understanding more than we realize. They are feeling deeply even when they say nothing. Silence, for them, is not weakness. It is a form of strength. It is acceptance. It is wisdom. But here is where we, as younger people, need to reflect. Are we giving them space to speak? Are we truly listening when they do? Or are we too busy, too distracted, too impatient? Sometimes, all it takes is one person to sit beside them to ask a simple question and to listen without rushing. You might be surprised by how much they still want to share. And how much you can learn. If you are watching this and you have an elderly parent, grandparent, or relative, take a moment today to talk to them. Not just a quick conversation. Sit with them, ask them about their past. Ask them about their experiences. Ask them how they feel. And most importantly, listen. Because one day, their silence may become permanent. And you might wish you had listened more. If this message is touching your heart, do not forget to subscribe. It helps this message reach more people who need to hear it. Let's continue. There is also a deeper, more philosophical reason why elderly people become quiet. They begin to understand life in a way that is hard to explain. They realize that many things we worry about do not really matter. They see the patterns of life. They understand how temporary everything is. And when you truly understand that, you do not feel the need to speak about every little thing. You become more selective with your words. You speak less, but when you do speak, it carries weight. Their silence is not empty. It is full of understanding. Full of reflection. Full of peace and sometimes, quiet sadness. So the next time you see an elderly person sitting quietly, do not assume they are disconnected. Do not assume they are unaware. They may simply be choosing silence over noise. They may be protecting their peace. They may be carrying a lifetime of stories waiting for someone who truly wants to hear them. And maybe that someone can be you. Before we end, take a moment to subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Share this video with someone who needs to understand this. Sometimes, a small awareness can change how we treat the people around us. Because in the end, growing old is not just about losing energy or becoming quiet. It is about becoming deeper. And sometimes, depth does not need words. It only needs understanding.